Welcome back, everyone, to Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp. Today, we will be chatting with Ernest Sandefer. He is a man behind his own podcast, a man that is passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, just as I am. And he will go through all measures to make sure that he sustains his self worth, his self value, and he does not allow other people or things to rob him of his joy or peace. Welcome, Ernest.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate that.
So, you could explain who you are far better than I can. So, let the listeners and viewers know who you are and what you're about.
Well, that was a really great introduction. But yeah, I'm Ernest Sandefer. I also go by the name You Love Ernest on social media. I'm a lot of things, a brother, son, nephew. But as far as just like hobbies and things, I'm an author. I have my own podcast as well. I have my own clothing line. I just started this past November. So it's only been a few months. It hasn't been a long time, as long as I've been writing and podcasting. But uh, yeah, it's going well, just like the other things. And I'm just overall a creative. I would describe that would be like one of the probably like 100 words I'll use to describe myself. Creative is definitely in like that top five of the words.
So, what's the name of your clothing line? And congratulations to that new endeavor.
Thanks. So the name is Bad for Business Clothing. I always wanted to start a clothing line. This is kind of a clothing line that is pretty expressive, just like how I am. But I wanted to have like something that people can wear to express how they feel or who they are on the outside, and not just be, because not everybody is a verbal person. Not everyone has podcasts like us. Not everyone is someone who is comfortable saying the things that they want to say and speaking their mind. So I just wanted to have something for them to get these thoughts out. So it's like, even if it's a t-shirt that says something, or, a sweater or a hoodie of some sort, or, the face mask, since that's, still a thing, something that people can read and say, oh, this is how this person feels about X, or, this is, something they can identify that person with, as far as having a personality, as, especially for my fellow introverts out there who don't really necessarily do a lot of talking or whatever. That is, it's a line for everybody. It's not just for people who don't necessarily speak, but, like I said, it's something that I've had this idea for the longest, probably since I was like a teen. But as I mentioned moments ago, I just like actually started doing it last November. So finally found the time, found the outlet. And I was like, let me just get started on this. And it's going really well so far.
That is great because now your dreams that you had since you were a teenager are now reality. And
Yeah.
you're also spreading your brand, but giving other people hope and vision for maybe their brand, or just giving them that leeway to express themselves. And I definitely want to segue into this segment's topic, which is workplace challenges and issues, because there's been so many of them, and some we hear about and others we don't, because people don't always like to share their stories because they may be afraid of what people are going to think and how others are going to perceive them. But it's so important when we share our stories is that we remain authentic and let people know this happened to me, but it also happened for me, and this is what I learned from this experience. So I want you to start off by telling the listeners as well as the viewers your workplace challenges and issues that you face, and how has it molded you to the man you are now.
So my first ever job was probably one of the greatest jobs I've ever had. Working for someone else. Let me make that clear. The greatest job I have now is working for myself, but working for others, it was this school program. At first, I was still in school when I first got the job. I was a high school kid, so obviously still in school, but summers were off, so it was just a summer job for me. And what we did was work with the youth in the city, and we introduced them to tennis and just I helped them with reading and things of that nature in their schoolwork. So as I got out of school, got out of high school and everything, graduated, that was a job that was pretty much lined up for me. Um, I've been there for a very long time, not even just as one of their former students, but as an employee there as well. And things was always going sweet. We talked about this job when you came on my podcast. So pretty much I was there for the longest, and I got comfortable because of the money and pretty much where my position was in the program. I was always a part-time staffer. But believe the title was like something coach. It wasn't like, you know, I was only lead coach in like the summer times because that's when I would lead my own what many would call camps. We just called them sites. So I would lead my own site, but they only allowed me to do that in the summertime, which at the time I had no problem with. But as I got older, of course, I was like, yeah, I really think I should be leading this site because the school I was working at, it was a middle school. And when I first got there, there was a woman in charge and she was great, but then she wanted to she wanted to lead another school because um, she wanted to leave the program at first, but then, you know, um, I don't know what happened with that. So she went to another location before she ended up leaving the program altogether. So they put another person in charge, someone outside, not even familiar with the program. And he ran it for a couple years, but then he wanted to leave. He moved out of state. So they're looking for others. I'm like, hello, I'm here. This guy I was working with, his name's Steven. I'm like, we've been here for the longest. Steven was actually one of the instructors or the coaches when I was a kid. So he's been here forever and stuff. This man literally watched me growing up and he's still in the same position as he was when I was a middle school kid. Yeah. So
Seriously, wait, let's just
yeah.
pause right there. He is still in the same position
To
that
this day
he
too,
was
because I
in.
see him around, just to be clear.
Why why is that? That's what I want to know.
I can point the race. He is a black man. He is from Barbados, so he's no longer an immigrant, but he did come here from Barbados years ago. Um, so I can point to that. He's saying he will justify it by saying he's not interested in a higher position, and that could be true. I don't want to speak for him. It could be he's really comfortable at the part-time coaching position. But I'm like, bro, dude, they overlook you for everything. They can at least take your thoughts into considerations because he'll share thoughts with me or complain with me when I was there about things. And I'm like, yeah, you've been here longer, so you know the ins and outs and stuff. And after you, it's me. So they should listen to at least us. We're the seniors, even though I'm in my early 20s at the time. And I'm like, yeah, we're still the seniors of this because I've been here as a student and now as an employee. You've been here as an employee ever since I was a student.
So do you feel like since you both were brown people, one being brown American and one being brown Caribbean descent, that they felt maybe intimidated by you all, or they just felt like, hey, you know what? They're just going to be our token people to show that we are inclusive, diverse, as well as equitable, but you really didn't see the equality from your vantage point, because what's the point of speaking up and then you're constantly getting dismissed or things are getting discarded? It makes you as an employee feel like you're not really a part of the team, like you don't have a place of belonging, because it's like, I'm here doing this job, but I'm constantly getting dismissed, omissed,
Yep.
and passed over. But then him, your counterpart being a brown person as well, is confiding in you because maybe you share similar interests or y'all have a lot of things in common, but he's afraid to talk up
Yeah.
or outwardly to other people because he may not know how it's going to be perceived or received by them. But then you're telling him, hey, you're getting overlooked or whatnot. But if he was comfortable telling you certain things and complaining to you, why wasn't he comfortable to advocate for himself?
I believe that goes with, wow, sorry for that. That was a loud notification. But I believe that is the case for him because a lot of, especially people of color, when we're in these situations where, especially how we're raised, we're told we get these jobs, especially if they're good paying jobs, whatever, that we keep our head down and we just listen, and we don't make them mad, basically. We don't piss anybody off or that nature. And again, this is stuff I was told, but I'm different. I'm someone that is typically, I can't keep my mouth shut when I, like I was saying, that when something is an injustice, I have to speak up. I'm respectful about it, but I can't just simply just not say anything, or at least go to somebody who, for no disrespect, doesn't really have the power, because he was going to me and I'm like, technically, I don't have the power to make these changes, but together, you and I, if I can even be the voice and you just back me up, but at the same time, like we have to do this together. So I think, again, how he was raised, I'm not really 100% sure how he was raised, but I'm pretty sure, and a lot of, Black folks was raised this way. When we get into these jobs, you don't, be the angry Black man, the angry Black woman, or, I'm pretty sure brown brothers and sisters are told that you don't be the angry Latino, Latina, or whoever, right? You get in here, you do your job, and let your actions speak for you. But that's what we've been doing for the longest of time. So for him, I think it's a culmination of, he was just raised not to say anything once he get these jobs, especially if you are someone outside of the USA. You keep your mouth shut, you work the job, you make your money, and that's what it is, right?
So I can speak on that a
Yeah.
bit there because I am Caribbean and South American descent. So my parents are foreigners.
Yeah.
My dad's no longer with us because he passed 7 months ago. And yeah, that you are correct to an extent. Like they say, oh, don't rock the boat. You have a great job with good benefits and all these things. But then they fail to realize that you are just as much educated as your counterparts are. You matter just as much as the next man or woman matters. And times are changing. So you have to be mindful of your mental health. And that comes with emotional well-being, physical well-being, and your overall well-being. And if you're in a toxic work environment, or if you're clocking in at someone's job, you're spending 8 to 10 hours there a day, you're spending the majority of your time on someone else's clock that you're not spending with your family. The least thing that you want to do is be beaten down mentally, physically, and emotionally, and feel invaluable. You don't want to be overlooked. You don't want to be paid unfairly, because there's a lot of times where there are brown people who are substantially paid lower than their white counterparts. And that is an issue, because if you're really talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but you aren't leveling the playing field, then there are some issues there. So I like that you brought that up there, because sometimes we can really get comfortable based on how we were raised, that it conditions us to remain stagnant.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. And I believe that was some of the things that was going down. Now, I had no idea who was getting paid, how much. I just knew how much money I was making. I never was the individual who would ask around. I know the woman that I was referencing before, I know she was upset about how she was being paid compared to the other male counterparts as well. I'm pretty sure at one point, although she was leading this school program, that I was probably getting more money than her, unfortunately. So believe that's the biggest reason as to why she decided to leave, and I don't blame her at all. A Black woman as well. So, yeah.
And thank you so much, Ernest, for sharing those examples, because it's so important that the listeners as well as the viewers hear stories that other people went through, so they know that they are not alone. They know that there's someone who's advocating out there. And by us sharing our stories and really advocating, we're helping somebody else, because there's a lot of times where people just don't want to talk about it because of fear. And whenever I talk about fear, I say, well, you could look at it as false evidence appearing real, or you could face everything and rise, or face everything and run. But however you want to look at fear, you can't keep letting it hold you back, and you can't keep holding yourself back by, constantly checking off the box to be that token person and say that you are inclusive and diverse.
Yeah. Yeah. And just one last thing about this job, I think that just simply because they work with inner city youth, they believe that they have this like white savior complex about them. So as I was saying, when you came on my show, it's like you do hire a lot of people of color. The majority of the staff are people of color. At least the ones that I've seen, because I was barely in the offices anyways. I've only gone there if I wanted to like visit, or if it was something wrong with the money and whatever, then I would just go up there and speak or whatever. But that was kind of my reputation anyways. It's just like Ernest is going to speak up about these situations. So I kind of, got the reputation of we have to get things right with him, or he even though I didn't yell, I never yelled at any of the employees, any of the leads. I never cursed anything. It was still, I guess, a fear of theirs that I was going to do that. So that for some reason they would, be extra careful when it came to my checks, or extra careful to how I felt, or extra careful. And it was nice to, get checked up on and things of that nature. But it's like, it shouldn't have to be a fear thing for you to give me that type of respect when everybody else just gets that because they're employees here and they're adding something to this program. And without them and without me and everybody else, this program is not lasting. So yeah, it was just weird.
Yeah, that is weird. It felt good because they took the extra steps, but how they went about doing it probably did not feel good, because it's like, why does it take all this whenever everyone else just gets this given to them?
Yeah, it's like I have to speak up on it, sometimes more than once. It got to a point where all it took was one time for me to say something, and then the problem was solved. But when I first started, it'd be 2, 3 times, and then it would be times I'm like, I'm taking off work. I'm like, why am I coming here if this is going to happen, or if this is going to be an issue? I'm taking off work, and you're going to have to find someone else to fill that position. And then they couldn't. And then it got to the point where, once again, they just started listening. And as I mentioned when we talked about it on our podcast, the CEO who got the job because of me, but as soon as he got the job, it seems like he revealed how much of an a-hole he was, to be honest with you. Because he was someone else who actually worked as he was one of the coaches as well when I was a student there. So he worked with Steven. They worked at 2 different schools, but same position basically. White guy, but he moves on up. He leaves the program for years, comes back and becomes the CEO. Steven's been with the program for years, still in the same position. And again, Steven's made it clear plenty of times he's comfortable at that position. But and I understand if that's how he really feels, that's how he really feels. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of, can they at least make him some type of consultant, or like, can they give him something else on top of just part-time coach or whatever? That was my thing. But again, the white guy, he gets Drew, he gets the position, the CEO position. And as I stated, when we talked about this, he would ask us to go to these mini events, and it would be for the students. And these were like unpaid events. And I was fine with it. But then this one unpaid event was just, just for a staff celebration. Me, knowing myself, I don't like to go to those staff soirees anyways, simply because that time can be spent writing, working on whatever book I'm working on my podcast, designing clothes, or doing whatever I'm working on for me at that moment. I'd rather spend that time doing all of that than going out. If it's for the kids, if it's for a good cause, we did charitable events. I didn't mind doing any of that stuff for free. But it just made no sense. A lot of those events were paid anyways. Now I went because of that and for just because it's for the kids, for charity, whatever. But this one was just for the staff. And I said no to that and that event. And that was actually my third and final no, I guess, to his standard for that year, because he had asked me to do something, two other things. And I don't even remember what they were, but they probably were events that I just blew off because, again, I'd rather do something else, that was going to elevate me and my career goals. So I said no to him twice. And then that third time, I saw his face and I just didn't care at the moment how he felt. But it was like this passive aggressive, like smirk he had. And I'm like, a part of me is like, oh crap, I pissed him off. But the other part is like, nah, you know what? You're doing what you want to do, and you don't want to be at this event. It's just a staff tennis game. If I really wanted to play, tennis with these people, they're great people, but we can do this any weekend. We can do this any day. We can do this literally any day. Why are we dedicating an entire day? Because the program is on vacation at the moment for this, when I could spend this time once again working on what I have to work on, and maybe the other people are fine with it. And it's like my one no is not going to ruin the entire thing.
So then looking forward and knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling with a workplace challenge, whether it's discrimination, whether it's ageism, sexism, nepotism, racism, or any ism that causes them to feel as if they are being challenged professionally in the workplace?
Advice, I would say you have to respect yourself. You have to love and respect yourself first before anything. And I know it's hard because we are working these jobs and we're not rich, and we're just working, and we're either working toward financial goals or we're in financial slumps and we really need these jobs. I've been there. But at the end of the day, your dignity to me is worth more than just anything. And whatever issues you might be going through financially or whatever, when there's a will, there's a way. You will find a way to get through those issues. You're not going to be broke forever. You're not going to be whatever the situation forever, as long as you make an effort to get through that. But allowing yourself to be disrespected because of your sex, your race, your age, your sexuality, your religion, your whatever, or to be looked past or passed up on for opportunities that you would do a good job in, or that you want because your sex or your race or whatever. It's not worth it to me. And again, I know everybody is different. Everybody has different issues, different problems. There are people who are worse off financially than I am. I'm no rich person, but there's still people who are worse off than I am, and they really need whatever jobs that they have. So they have to, they feel as though they need to go into these jobs with the idea of keep your head down, do your work, smile, and if they say jump, you say how high. You laugh at all the jokes, even if they're at your expense. You go to every single event, even though you're tired, even though you have something to do. You never say no at all. And you just be jolly and positive and all that other stuff. And to me, it's like you have to weigh the cost of all of that compared to who you are at the end of the day. When you do all these things, do you really feel good at the end of the day? I'm going to say no, because as someone who was told to do that, I wasn't always the outspoken or whatever. I was toting a line. I was, doing what I was told. I was being silent. I was keeping to myself. I was all of that. I never said no. But then it just got to the point where I never felt good about myself. As I laid down, it was like, I don't feel good about this day. Yeah, the event was cool and fun. It was moments, but I don't feel good. I don't feel like it was I had control into going to this work event or doing this thing. And even the simplest of thing, it's the simplest thing. Like you just felt like you had no choice. You had to do that. That's enough for me to feel in any situation to feel like this absolutely sucks. I hate it. So everybody is different, but with me, it's like if I feel as though I can't even have a choice because I'm being forced either economically or whatever, something is forcing me to be this way, to do these things. Um, that's when I'm like, something has to change. So my advice, once again, I know that was kind of long-winded. My advice would just be weigh what is important to you, and your dignity, at least in my opinion, will always be worth more than whatever dollar amount you're getting. I was getting, close to 1,000 every 2 weeks at that job. So it was nice, but at the same time, it was something that I wasn't going to stay quiet. And even if I was getting 10,000 2 weeks or so, or whatever.
And I guess my question here that I would interject for you listeners as well as viewers is how much are they paying you to sleep on your dreams, your visions, and your goals? And is that dollar amount worth it? Is that hourly pay worth you sleeping on your dreams? Is that salary worth it for you to take a back seat on who you are and what you want to achieve? So, really think about those questions as you begin to expound on the current season that you're in. And don't allow the limitations that other people place on you keep you conditioned. It's time for you to rise up and break those barriers despite the workplace challenges that you may be facing. And as we wind down, I want Ernest to tell you once again who he is, how you can connect with him on social media, and any other lasting thoughts that he has.
Well, we start off by thanking you for having me on the show. Always a pleasure talking to you and speaking to the fans and sharing some advice. Pardon me once again. I am an author. I guess I'm a designer now. Author, podcaster. I just started my own clothing brand back in November. Bad for business clothing. So it's still up and running and everything. Fairly new, but y'all check that out. You can find me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Ernest Sandefer. So ERNESTSANDEFER. You can find me there. You can find me on Amazon that way as well. I have an Amazon author page. So go there, follow me. You can find the book that I have up there. Now I'm going to be adding another book, my first book that I actually published soon as I get it up and running on Amazon. So I'll have 2 books there, and you will find all my book updates and just updates on whatever writing that I'm doing. You can find me on Twitter as well at YouLoveErnest. That is the word you_love and then _Ernest. That's Twitter. That's my Instagram account as well. I have 3 podcasts. So yeah, constantly working. So I have the Ernest Thoughts podcast. That's a podcast pretty much about pop culture, life, anything outside of music, movies, and TV shows, because I have separate podcasts for that. But on the Ernest Thoughts podcast, I interview people as well. I share my thoughts on things such as, the various topics that you'll hear Genesis speak about, other topics as well, just things of interest. The music podcast is called the My 2 Cents podcast, where I just review an album every week or just talk about music in general. I love music. So it's all about music, whether it's about like a music artist or just a style of music, or again, I'm reviewing a music album. So that's the My 2 Cents podcast. 2 cents is spelled, with the $0.02. So My 2 Cents podcast. Season premiere podcast is the podcast I do where I talk about movies and TV shows. I just review any of the shows that I'm watching movies that I'm watching, and it's really that simple. So yeah, those are all the things I'm doing right now. And yeah, that's me.
And there you have it, listeners of Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp. You just heard Ernest Sandefer, also known as You Love Ernest, drop some of his gems when it comes to workplace challenges and issues. He also shared all of his contact information, which will be in the show notes. If you like what you heard today, make sure you like, comment. You could also send me a voice note to anchor.fm. You could send me a voice note through my email address, which will be in the show notes. And make sure you don't forget to hit subscribe and stay connected so you could hear other great guests who will be coming on in the future to share their stories, because as you all know, we all have a story to tell. And until we chat next time, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Signing out, Genesis Amaris Kemp.